Welcome to the Jewelry Resellers Podcast, your go-to source for all things shiny, sparkly, and of course, profitable. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'll be your guide on this dazzling journey through the world of reselling jewelry. We'll be diving deep into the art and science of reselling, uncovering valuable tips, insider secrets, and sharing stories from successful jewelry resellers. We'll explore market trends, industry news, and even discuss how to find those hidden gems just waiting to be discovered in thrift stores, estate sales, and beyond. So if you're dreaming of turning your hobby into a hustle, or if you're a seasoned pro looking to stay at the top of your jewelry reselling game, join me each week for insights, stories, and more on the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I'm your host, Desiree, and today we are going to be covering something fun, I think, and a little bit interesting. This is all about Katt Williams and his jewelry. Now, you know I like to bring you jewelry-related news and information, and I think this is definitely something that we need to pay attention to as jewelry resellers, not necessarily because we are going to sell pieces exactly like this, but I do think that this really has an influence on the current trends about what type of jewelry will be in demand as we move through this year and maybe through several years. I mean, who knows? But if you are not familiar with who Katt Williams is, earlier this month, he did a very interesting, I'll say, nearly 3-hour interview on Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast. Now, in this interview, the comedian made some very bold statements about other celebrities. And while the interview itself was very entertaining, a lot of people had their focus on Katt Williams jewelry. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I did a little bit of digging online and I did a Google search, and I did find one article that kind of gives us a little bit of information about Katt Williams jewelry and what he's wearing and who makes it and all that type of stuff. And I also found some information on Facebook. Now, I'm getting this information for today's show from a website called Distractify.com. And the title of the article is, "What Does Katt Williams Necklace Say?" So it's very straightforward. And of course, I will have a link to the article as well as the Facebook post that I'm going to talk about later. I will have a link for both of those in the show notes of this episode. But let's go ahead and get right into what we're all curious about. Now, if you noticed in the Katt Williams interview, you can see a very bold and a very sparkly necklace around his neck. And you also notice that he's got some rings and he's also got some bracelets. He is what we would call iced out or blinged out. And he definitely has a very flamboyant and a very bold personality. And I think his jewelry is definitely a reflection of that. But a lot of people were questioning, what does Katt Williams's necklace actually say? And when I read this article, and this is kind of what I saw just from looking at it myself, looking at the big pendant that he has, it says Woke Folk, and that's WOKEFOKE, Woke Folk. All right. And that's in glittering letters. And the two words overlap at the O. And again, I'll have a picture of this in the show notes so you can see exactly what it looks like. Now, the article goes on to say that they don't have any exact information as it relates to what the phrase means. But now when you think about the context of the interview that Katt was having, and you know kind of a little bit of about his background, He's shared a lot of controversial things in the past, and he has been very deliberate in the things he says, the way he says it, and certain things where people would probably even say he exposes a lot as it relates to Hollywood, as it relates to the entertainment industry, and certain actors and actresses who are very much a part and who are very well known in Hollywood, the industries, and so forth. So if you know that about Katt Williams's background, then you will probably have a good idea of what his necklace means. So we're going to talk about woke folk. We're going to talk about that part first. So I'm sure we all have heard the phrase, someone is woke, right? Which means there's two aspects of that meaning. Woke being someone who is a little bit more of a critical thinker, someone who asks a lot of questions, and someone who does not take everything at face value. All right, that's one meaning, at least as I understand it. Now, there's also kind of an opposite meaning to being woke, and that's someone who is all about kind of following certain agendas, right? You know, they're hopping on the bandwagon of certain agendas because they don't want to be considered someone who is not woke. Okay, so that's probably the best way I can describe it, and probably as deep as I will go on this podcast, because that's not really what we're here for. But I just want to put all of this into context for you so we can try and figure out what Katt is trying to communicate by wearing this specific piece of jewelry. Now, the article goes on to say that back in March of 2022, he actually posted an Instagram photo of himself performing, and in that caption, he wrote, "Woke folk versus sleep sheep." Now, again, if you know Katt Williams and how he is very outspoken about a lot of things, in this context, I believe that he is saying he is part of the woke folk tribe, and that he is not what he calls a sleep sheep, meaning someone who just kind of goes along, doesn't ask questions, does what they're told, and just trusts that everything is what it appears to be. Now, again, we're not really going to debate this, or at least I'm not going to, but I want to make sure that we're understanding where he's coming from as it relates to the messaging on his jewelry, and why this is going to be so powerful, and why us as jewelry sellers, jewelry resellers, need to at least be aware of this and be informed, because this could dictate a trend as it relates to the demand for certain styles of jewelry. So clearly, Katt Williams is really making a bold statement here. Now, he may not deliberately say whatever it is he's thinking. Well, knowing Katt Williams, he probably would. But you know how sometimes they say that communication, 80-90% of communication is nonverbal. So it's not about what we say, but it's also about what we don't say. And it's also about some of the things we choose to wear, our behavior, and all that type of stuff. So as it relates to Katt Williams's jewelry, I think that it could be something that could be very polarizing as it relates to our modern era. Now, this could be a statement in the sense that Katt is saying, hey, this is who I am. This is how I want to show up. And he definitely has the take it or leave it attitude. And it also is not only communicating his beliefs as it relates to being a woke folk, But there's also something very, I want to say, alpha as it relates to him wearing jewelry that is very noticeable, that is very obvious, that is very extravagant, and also very attention seeking, right? So this is where we start seeing, okay, how does Katt influence, or how does Katt Williams, his jewelry choices influence the trends that are starting to emerge right now? I think we're going to see a lot of young people doing the same thing as it relates to their jewelry choices. Now, they may not do this exact same thing like Katt Williams is doing, but I do think that a lot of our younger generation will start to see jewelry as a way to express certain beliefs, certain preferences, maybe even certain ideologies, maybe even religious backing. Who knows? But I think it's very obvious that Katt Williams makes a statement not only with his voice, but also with his jewelry. And that's what I really want us to pay attention to, because not only is his jewelry as bold as he is, but it's really another way of expressing himself, and it's really another way of making a statement without saying a word. Now, this also brings to mind that there's going to be some, maybe more of a call for custom made jewelry, because obviously this is a custom designed piece just for him. But when I did some research on the company that designed his necklace, it looks like maybe somebody else could buy it too. Maybe they could buy a replica or a similar design. I'm not sure how that works. But the company that made his necklace, or his set, as a matter of fact, when I looked it up, is called Icebox Diamonds and Watches. And on their Facebook page, and this was back in March of 2022, they did a little trivia question, and it says, can you guess how many black diamonds are in Katt Williams' set? And it's anywhere from 1,200, 2,500, 5,000, or 10,000 black diamonds. And it's absolutely stunning when you look at it up close. And again, I'll have the link in the show notes for you. But it's amazing because there's so much symbology when you look at the piece. And again, I think this is really going to create a new trend of custom made jewelry, or jewelry that really makes some type of a statement, or, something where it identifies who you are. And I'm not talking about just your name and stuff like that, but it really identifies where you stand. It identifies what you believe in, and it really gives you, I don't want to say the word power, but it really gives you, I guess, more expression. That would probably be the best way to say it. So that is what I wanted to share with you as it relates to Katt Williams jewelry. If you haven't seen the interview, it's all over the place, so you really could watch it on YouTube. I think you could also catch clips on Instagram. Now, the other thing I want to throw out before I wrap up is Katt Williams also, it wasn't just about the necklace and the pendant, but it was about the whole ensemble he had. It was the necklace, the pendant, the rings, the bracelets. I can't remember if he had earrings on or not, but it was just everything. It was definitely communicating that this is somebody who wants to be seen and who wants to be heard. And I think jewelry does do that for a lot of people. It gives them a sense of importance. It gives them another way to attract attention, like we talked about earlier. And because Katt Williams is a performer, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see any type of disconnect as it relates to that. I do believe that his career is to, attract attention, is to make waves, and to make people laugh, which is what he talked about in the interview. So this is something to think about. Let's think about how this is going to influence the current trend and future trends as it relates to jewelry. And let's also think about how we can use this to our advantage, just knowing what motivates people to wear certain pieces of jewelry. We can use that when we're trying to source jewelry or to sell jewelry pieces. If you know someone who has a very distinct personality, let's say you have a client who's looking for something very bold and unique, well, you can kind of tap into this same energy. You can really kind of use your knowledge as it relates to jewelry, as we already know are statement pieces. Okay, so yeah. This was really a fun episode to record because, I'm looking at the article, I'm looking at the jewelry while I'm speaking with you, and it's really kind of made me more aware of the importance of jewelry as it relates to your own personal style and how we help people find the type of jewelry that matters to them. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments, please leave them either in the comment section or on YouTube, depending on where you are watching this. And I would love it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. All right. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will check in with you again really soon.